Good evening. In this episode, I'm going to attempt to assess the compatibility of Christian theology with Deeptime theology, history, and cosmology. Christian theology is still confined with human interest of only 5,000 years, but the age of the universe, we have learned that it's about 13 to 15 billion years old, and the age of our planet Earth is 5 billion years. So we need to make appropriate theology, not stay in shallow 5,000-year-old theology. So we have to liberate Christian theology from that confinement and give a big picture, this deep time theology. What was God doing before 5,000 years, all the way to 15 billion years? The God is immanent. God is with us. He is Emmanuel. And how His presence was felt in the early time of our universe. It deals with questions such as, can Christianity adopt or adapt one of the many intermediate models of origins that harmonize Christianity with evolution? Can the Church harmonize biblical creation to deep time, evolutionary history, without changing its essence and theological system? Is deep time evolutionary thinking compatible with the inner logic of Christian theology? To achieve this aim, we will explore some systematic consequences that would follow from abandoning the historical literal meaning of Genesis chapter 1. We will start by considering the nature of the issue before us and then focus on biblical history, God's actions, and the inner logic and coherence of these theological ideas. Then we will note the hermeneutical role that cosmology plays in the formation of theological thinking. The issue before us is not whether Christian theology could harmonize Genesis chapter 1 with deep time or evolution, but whether deep time and evolution fits with the entire system of biblical theology. In short, are the 6 days, 24-hour days of Genesis chapter 1 an essential component of or compatible with biblical religious truth? Some theologians suggest that Christian theology is compatible with deep time evolutionary history. For them, to harmonize evolutionary theory with Christian biblical theology is to interpret Genesis chapter 1 theologically, that is, not literally. Those who view the Genesis record this way feel that if we were to make such a concession, Christian theology and doctrine would not only remain unchanged, but would also become relevant to those persuaded of the truthfulness of deep time and evolutionary ideas. The intellectual credibility of the Church would be enhanced and its intellectual appeal broadened. When it comes to time and cosmology, we follow God's clock. In Psalm 90, verse 4, we read, "For 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night." Let's talk about Monday morning of creation. 15 billion years ago, God commands something remarkable. Let there be light. The Big Bang, the biggest violent cosmic explosion, released an enormous amount of energy which could be later seen as organized universe. New stars are born, hundreds and thousands of dark and dense cosmic gases violently fusing together. God created the gift of space and time, matter, gravity, strong and weak nuclear forces, electromagnetic force, and science. Teilhard de Chardin is right when he writes that The cosmos is fundamentally and primarily living Christ. Through his incarnation, is internal to the world, rooted in the world. Even in the very heart of the tiniest atom, nothing seems to be more vital from the point of view of human energy than the appearance and eventually the systematic cultivation of such a cosmic sense. Now, star clusters are visible and 5 billion years have passed. And it was Monday evening for God, and God saw it was good. Tuesday morning, 10 billion years ago. God continues to expand the organized space and matter. God calls the expansion the sky. Star clusters congregate and new galaxies are born. Gravity is pushed to the extreme. Stars go out of fuel. Crushed by their own gravity, they go supernova. These occur at the end of a star's lifetime when its fuel is exhausted and it is no longer supported by the release of nuclear energy. Vast amount of gas and debris, which is known as star dust or stellar nebula, is visible across the universe. Death of a previous star provides matter to a second generation star. Our star in the Milky Way galaxy, a second generation star, was formed from the remains of a previous supernova, as there is high abundance of heavy elements such as iron, gold, and even uranium in the solar system. 10 billion years have passed, and it was Tuesday evening for God. God was pleased with the progress he saw. It was good. Wednesday morning, 5 billion years ago, God created our solar system, our planet Earth, sun and moon, seas, algae, the first plants. Planets are from the planetary nebula formed from a shell of gas, which was ejected from a newly born hot star. Our solar system began forming in a concentration of interstellar dust and hydrogen gas called a molecular cloud. Earth formed simultaneously with the other solar system planets and the central sun. Accretion of planetesimals produced a large body which assumed a spherical shape. Probably cool at the outset, this proto-Earth rapidly heated up, formed its metallic core within 100 million years, and was subjected to continuous impact bombardments of asteroids, comets, and meteorites. After millions of years, Earth cooled down, and it rained millions of years to form oceans, and life was inevitable. 12.5 billion years have passed, and it was Wednesday evening. God saw it was good. Thursday morning, 2.5 billion years ago, the first organisms faced extinction. Some of the organisms were stromatolites, algae, and one-celled organisms. Most of them were the building blocks of life. 85% of the primitive life forms perished. God redesigned the earth by creating ozone layer, protecting earth from ultraviolet rays from the sun, creating atmosphere rich in oxygen, eliminating the poison gases, and giving ability to plants to photosynthesize the sun's energy. God was preparing earth for more special and complex life. Hebrew prophet's words come to pass. I formed you in your mother's womb. 14.5 billion years have passed, and it was Thursday evening for God, and God found it was good. Friday morning, 500 million years ago, planet cools down and also has plenty of oxygen. Life proliferates abundantly on our planet. There are fish, vertebrates, invertebrates, reptiles, birds, mammals, livestock. Scientists call this abundance of species phenomena as Cambrian explosion. Scientists agree that the Cambrian explosion is one of the most significant events in the history of life. It is marked by a series of biological changes that took place a relatively short period of geologic time during the early Cambrian, that is 543 to 520 million years ago. First and foremost, the Cambrian explosion is marked by the global appearance of organisms with skeletal structures were simple in design, such as minute cylindrical tubes, tiny cones, and rudimentary jaw-like appendages. However, they evolved rapidly into larger and more elaborate structures comparable to the exoskeletons of many living invertebrate groups. These early skeletons were constructed from a diverse array of materials that from the building blocks of skeletons to this day, including calcium carbonate, calcium phosphate, and silica. Another 496 millions have passed. It was Friday evening for God, and he saw everything was good. Saturday morning, 4 million years ago, something extraordinary is going to happen. The book of Genesis chapter 127 reads, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them." The history of Ethiopia begins with Lucy. Lucy was a female hominid that lived in what is now called the Awash Valley in Haida some 3.5 million years ago. When her skeletons were discovered in 1974, Ethiopia then claimed that it was the first dwelling of mankind. Lucy's scientific name is Australopithecus afarensis. The first word, Australopithecus, means southern ape. The second word, afarensis, means she was discovered in the Afar region of Ethiopia. Ethiopians refer to her as Dinganish. Lucy is kept preserved at the National Museum in Addis Ababa, and an exact plaster replica is also displayed next to her. She probably did not live more than 20 years and weighed around 60 pounds and stood 3.5 feet. It was Saturday evening. For God, whatever he had created was very good. The sacred text reads, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after day they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens he has pitched a tent for the sun, which is like a bridegroom coming forth from his pavilion, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is hidden from its heart." Psalm 19, verse 1 to 6. Thank you.